Are Danielle Hunter's days numbered in Minnesota? Well, one would have to believe that, yeah, his days are probably numbered, and that's because of the contracts that we're going to have to give out. A, Justin Jefferson's going to have to get a contract extension. B, we might potentially re-sign Kirk Cousins to a 1-year, maybe 2-year deal, and that wouldn't leave much money on the table for Danielle Hunter and the Minnesota Vikings to make a medium to long term, like 3 to 5 year deal for Danielle, because he's an absolute freak. That's what he deserves. He deserves a lot of money as well. So it's going to be tough. So his days could potentially be numbered in Minnesota. But let's look at his side of this and what he kind of reiterated to the media after the loss just a couple days ago and ending the season and stuff like that. What was Danielle Hunter's thoughts on this organization, where he wants to play, what's going on? So let's get right into that. Before we do it, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It'd be much, much appreciated. So we know that Kirk Cousins can become a free agent in March. The Vikings want to sign Justin Jefferson to a long-term deal. But what about Danielle Hunter? He's one of the best players on the Vikings defense, but are his days in Minnesota numbered? Now, Hunter's contract for 2024 and 2025 will void on March 13th, which is also $14.9 million in dead cap money. Now, he didn't participate in Vikings offseason workouts that were voluntary. He was at mandatory minicamp and reported to training camp on time, but he didn't practice until he worked out a contract for the 2023 season. We already remember that whole debacle. Is he going to stay? What's going to happen? Are we going to end up trading Danielle Hunter? What's going on? And he ends up, restructuring his contract, and he stays with the Minnesota Vikings for this season. Now, he said after Sunday's loss that he wants to stay in Minnesota. He reiterated the same on Monday at the TCO Performance Center as players cleaned out their lockers. He hasn't thought about free agency. Here's what Danielle said. This is an organization that I love. You know how it goes with all this business stuff, but I definitely like to be back. I'm still with the Vikings right now, so that time hasn't come yet. I don't know much about it, so it is what it is, which is a good way to look at it. He said, look, I love the Minnesota Vikings organization. This is where I want to play for the rest of my career, or at least in the future, the near future going forward, but it's a business. Anything can happen. It is what it is. Right now I'm a Viking. If I'm not a Viking tomorrow, so be it. It is what it is. That's basically what he's saying. And I would love to have Danielle Hunter back in this organization, back on that defense, and here for a long time, because he is a game wrecker. He's one of the best, defensive players that we have, if not the best player on the defense. But he bet on himself, for the second straight season, and it paid off. Danielle Hunter finished with 83 tackles, 54 solo, and 23 tackles for loss. His 16.5 sacks were a career high for him. Remember, he had the back-to-back 14.5 season sacks until he, ends up tearing his pectoral muscle, and he has to sit out a little bit. Which also, that 16.5 sacks gave him a $13 million bonus. But he says he could have done more. He said, honestly, I feel kind of incomplete. People may think it's a good year, but I feel like there's more that I could have done for the team in order to make the playoffs. That's for me to figure out. That's why there's an off season. I feel like there's more that I could do to help my teammates. Just feel like there's more in the tank somewhere, so I just gotta find it. I think he's just saying that because the way the season ended, the way it unfolded, I guess if you will, going 13-4, making the playoffs, and having a great year, to a season where at the beginning of the year we were all saying tank for Caleb, and then we start rattling off some wins. Oh, there's some hope. We could still win the NFC North. We can still make the playoffs. And then boom, we get smacked in the mouth the last couple of weeks, and we find ourselves not in the playoff hunt, or not even in the playoffs. So I think that's where that's kind of coming from. So it sucks. He could have done more. Would have been great to see that, but it is what it is. Now, Hunter said recently, as 2 years ago, he didn't know if he'd ever play football again. He missed the entire 2020 season after having surgery on a herniated disc in his neck, suffered in training camp. He also played in 7 games in 2021, missing the rest of the season after suffering a torn pectoral muscle against the Indianapolis Colts. But since then, he's now played in every game the past 2 seasons and has 26.5 sacks over that time. Here's what Hunter said. I remember watching all the time. Those 2 years I was injured, I was thinking I would probably never be able to play football again. I remember going back on the field for the first time, and I was really thankful for that moment. Now, Hunter, is one of the top edge rushers in the National Football League. So if the Vikings don't pay him, somebody else will. And that is a statement that you have to watch, because somebody will pay Danielle Hunter. Early in the season, before the trade deadline, the Jacksonville Jaguars were a team that popped up when we were talking about potential trade talks for Danielle. So if the Vikings don't decide, I should say, if the Vikings can't find a way to pay Danielle Hunter, Justin Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins, and Danielle is ultimately the guy that gets canned or gets released, somebody's going to find a way to pay Danielle Hunter. And he's going to be an immediate game changer on any roster that he goes to. I think he's going to have a healthy career from here on out. At least that's the hope anyways. He's going to get at least 10 sacks. Like, if he's healthy, he's going to get over 10 sacks. I think his days are numbered in Minnesota, unfortunately. Is that a promise? I hope not. Because I would love to see Danielle Hunter back in the purple and gold, back with this organization, and hopefully try to help us win a Lombardi, because that's the ultimate goal. You guys let me know your thoughts. Is Danielle Hunter's days in Minnesota numbered? I don't know. Let me know down below. Also, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It'd be much appreciated. Have a great rest of your night, folks, and Skol Vikes.